Welcome to another Quantum Conversation, brought to you by AcousticHealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery.
Oh, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are with a beautiful soul teacher today, and I am hoping everyone is ready to raise their vibration. Richard Whitehurst is an incredible teacher, psychotherapist, who has incredible stories to share that will elevate us into a new dimension. Today, we're talking about awakening the spiritual heart. This is a precursor to an upcoming course that is going to go deep on this topic. But we're here to talk with Richard about a few of his stories and his time in India and the spiritual heart. Hi, Richard. Welcome.
Hey, Loren. Thank you so much for having me here. It's always a joy, and love sharing, love giving and receiving. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, this is about the spiritual heart. Can you define what you mean by spiritual heart and how one would recognize when we're in the spiritual heart?
Yeah, great question. And I thought, well, first thing I'll do is define what I mean by spiritual. And my way of thinking about spiritual is relationship. So, but spiritual in the sense that my relationship to everything, okay, to all manner of things, all levels of reality. So that's what I mean by spiritual. And then the heart, I mean the physical heart, but I also mean the emotional heart. I also mean that cognitive heart, and then also that spiritual heart, the heart that is connecting and unifying, and where we know that we are integrated with the totality of all that is. So how's that going?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and so it is about a matter of relationship and entering into relationship with, right there. So I'm not talking about something vague or nebulous. I'm talking about something very tangible, literally right down to the visceral perception of our heart beating in our chest. And for me, it was a very strange entrance into this life, because as a very small child, I can remember lying in my bed, and I'm talking really young. I've done a lot of work, and there's not many places I haven't looked, I don't want to look there. That's too freaky, too scary. I've been burying that for years, but I've been looking in those places. And, the bottom line, of course, is that I survived. We all have survived. Those of us who are listening here, we survived whatever happened to us. I was just facilitating a 6-day really intensive retreat, and one participant had just terrible things that had happened to her. And anyway, the point being, and that's a point I make frequently with my clients, is that you're alive right now. So the fact is, you made it. Anyway, as a small boy, I remember lying in my bed, and I think I was under 2 years of age, right? But I guess what I was saying earlier is that the unconscious just opens up as you address things, deeper issues, pain within oneself that we have been afraid to look at. And I was lying in my bed, and I could hear, our sensory systems are so sharp and crisp when we're brand new into this world. And I could hear my heart beating. As I had my ear resting against my pillow, I could hear this, at slightly higher pace than what we have as adults, but this kind of beating. I think many have heard in the womb, we've heard recordings of, there's the baby's heartbeat. So those of us who have been through child rearing, child creating, and you hear a, what is it, the visual ultrasound, and then they will often, you can hear really fast. Anyway, I could hear my heart beating, and I freaked out. It was one of the most scary things to me as a small child. Like, and I think many of us have had the opportunity, because of just the amazingness of what we've done as humans in creating YouTube and creating video and all film and all kinds of ways of recording experience that we've seen with the open heart surgery. We've seen the heart in there, just going. And it's amazing. And it's kind of, I mean, my child self was freaked out by it. But what it did, it drew my attention to the very reality of the heart, right? So it created a focus. And, you know, this is the thing about life in general, from my point of view, is that we convert symptoms into signals. And what was the symptom? The symptom was fear, right? And I don't call it a negative emotion, even though many people do, nor do I call it a positive emotion. I could just refer to these things as depleting or renewing, as contracting or expanding, lower frequency, higher frequency. Just because you get in trouble if you think of things as oh, it's negative, and then, you know, we set up resistances. But yeah, so my earliest really thoughts and feelings about my heart were those based upon fear. And, you know, coming into the human condition is just such an amazing, and I think I was listening to one of our earlier recordings, Loren, and I don't want to make it all too flowery, because, and I really love the quote by Carlos Castaneda, whatever you may think of him, whatever anyone may think of him, was it real, was it fictional? Amazing books. They stimulated my imagination tremendously. And he made this quote, and I'm not so much a person into warriorship. Many are, the warrior, you know, or fierceness, which has been a popular word lately. But I'm really into the magician in terms of an archetypal structure to live by, through, along. But Carlos Castaneda made this statement which really struck me. He said, the true art of the warrior is to balance the terror of being human with the wonder of being human. Right? The true art of the warrior is to balance the terror of being human with the wonder of being human. And this has really encapsulated so much of my life, because it's not all wonderful, as we know. I mean, it's all wonderful in the ultimate depths of three-dimensionality, is like just to be here, no matter what's going on. It's just like, my God. But you know, we suffer terrible losses in our lives. We have a category of vulnerability that is just so profound and really can run very deep of what can happen. But it's also full-blown miraculous. And so I just wanted to kind of balance that out a bit. Sometimes I can go off into the miraculousness of the amazing beauty and all of that, but also, and so for me, my entrance into the heart in this lifetime was one of fear, apprehension. Oh my God, where am I? What's going on here? What is this place? And what is this human thing that, you know, I'm identifying with? Was it Wordsworth? Whither hast fled the visionary gleam? Where is it now, the glory and the dream? And as a small child, you know, and probably true for most of us who are on this, there are connections to other realities that eventually fade away, that fade as we grow older with language acquisition and you know, getting enculturated. I love the one, Terence McKenna. Those of you who know Terence McKenna, he was one of my heroes. I was very sad. I cried when he died. It's like, no, because he was a great stimulus to the opening of my imagination. He and many others, but he would say in his rather Paul Lind way of speaking, and that some of you who watched game shows in the 60s and 70s know what I'm talking about. Paul Lind, he would sort of speak a bit like this, and Terence McKenna sort of, he was like a psychedelic Paul Lind, but he would say, culture is not your friend. Culture is not your friend. And what did he mean by that? Well, he meant that this kind of enculturation that we absorb and we get into what Wordsworth said, where we fade into the light of plain day. We fade into the light of plain day. And then it's like, a ho-hum life, ho-hum existence. So I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but it's easy for us to get into that because you got to live, you got to make a living, you have to do all these things that seem like culture wants you to do. But there are more important things. And that's sort of some of the beauties of accounts that we receive from near-death experiences. And Raymond Moody, he's a doctor, he's written certain books about these near-death experiences, and what seems to come through so often is the question from, I'm not sure if it's source, all uppercase letters, SOURCE, or source as some sort of wisdom, guiding, ally, loving presence, whatever. But the big question is, for the life, as there's a life review going in these kinds of experiences, did you learn to love? And did you put that into practice? Right? And there, boom, I got the chills just right now, just thinking about that, which is one of the great indicators for us, can be. Truth is in the shivers, as Robert Moss was known to say. Yeah, so did you learn to love? And did you put that into practice, integrate that into your behavior? That's like a question that seems to come up in these extreme experiences where it's like, might be leaving this dimension of experience and moving on to others. So in the early childhood, that's what I noted. I would just lying in bed, sometimes trying to go to sleep, because it can be challenging if you hear your little pitter patter of your heart going on and you don't know what's happening, and it's all freaky. But yeah, connection to other dimensions, they were there. I definitely had them, and I knew they were fading away. One of the, I'm just rambling here, but one of the great indicators for me, because for me it was such a magical time, not just because you're getting gifts, presents, this is Christmas I'm talking about, but the birth of the divine child. Yeah, I look upon it, especially these days, as archetypal. Like, we're all the divine child. All of us are born as the divine child, even if we're bringing in stuff from other experiences, other metaphysical dimensions. But the magic of that season for me as a child, I noticed it fading as the years ticked on. When you're very early, you don't know what's going on. You just know it's like an amazing kind of magical time. But then the years were ticking on, and I could feel it just kind of evaporating slowly, like air slowly draining out of a balloon that has a slow leak, And so, so the spiritual heart, it's really one of the big themes of my life. We've spoken previously about synchronicity, which you could say, well, that's a kind of a theme of my life, is like this synchronicities, one after another, that are kind of go this way, go that way. The heart has really been a huge theme for me in my life. And some of those synchronicities pointed directly to the heart. Richard, the heart is a very, very important thing for you. I'm saying for me, and it may not be everyone's theme or important thing, but I believe right now the human species needs to shift out of the head and into the heart. And I remember some of the other things that freaked me out as a child were brain movies, sci-fi brain movies. And there were two, especially. One was called The Brain That Wouldn't Die. And it was like, I don't know, it's a low budget They were not like super high quality sci-fi. And the other was called Donovan's Brain. And, you know, some of you may have seen these things. I think they were black and white, 60s, from the 60s. And yeah, Donovan's Brain was about some high power, I guess you would say Donald Trump-esque kind of guy who was giant business guy wielding power, and he crashes his car on a stormy night, just happens to crash below the research facility of a scientist, a neuroscientist, I don't even know if that name existed back then, who was studying brains, and he had a chimpanzee's brain suspended in a solution. And then anyway, he goes down, this guy's dead, and he harvests his brain, puts it in looks like a fish aquarium, and it's suspended there in a nutritive solution. And then it takes over. That's the point. It's no longer constricted or confined to the cranial capacity. It can grow and expand, and it starts to do that. He's noting these things on his clipboard. Neural substances is expanding. Anyway, it starts to become telepathically powerful and then takes over the scientist, right? So this is the point. Brain taking over somebody. And that's what was the freaky thing for me about it, is that, oh my God, I'm not going to use foul language here, but I could easily jump into using the F word. But brain taking over. And what are the characteristics of the brain? Well, we got the right and left hemispheres. And any of you who have not seen it, Jill Bolte Taylor's Stroke of Insight, it's a TED Talk. Write that down. Stroke of Insight, Jill Bolte, B-O-L-T-E, Taylor. Stroke of Insight. And she gets into it. She talks about running the deep peace circuits of the right hemisphere of the brain, which I give that a big tick, right? Because the left hemisphere seems to be the brain that took me over, and where Christmas, the magic of Christmas is just slowly just kind of fading away. So by the time I was 11, when I was 11, I knew the magic had really dwindled, because my father bought me a 20 gauge double barrel shotgun for Christmas. You know? We had guns, right to bear arms. You know, I was brought up in Virginia. So anyway, back to the heart, the fear of the reality of the physical heart. It's amazing. It's amazing. Dr. Christian Barnard, who did the first heart transplant, beautiful quote that he gives about it. So poetic. And I can't quote it off the top of my head, but it's this endless pulsing sea, you know, it's gripping and releasing, which has a lot to do metaphorically or symbolically with love, and what makes love so dynamic, and how to stir love, how to the cauldron, and you're mixing it and stirring, and how it's increasing. So yes, being taken over by the brain, this left hemispheric, you know. And look, I know there are neuroscientists out there, neurophysiologists, who are going to say, don't do this division thing too much, but still, most people will say, yeah, there's something to that hemispheric division. And left hemisphere, for most people, language, linear thinking, the future, the past, you know, and that is where the constriction really seemed to grab me. And so I drifted away from my heart, and I got a wake-up call when I was 16. Okay, can I tell this story, Lauren? I'm just on a roll here. Hey everybody, I just drank coffee. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning here in Queensland, Australia, and it's dark outside. So yeah, but I get up early anyway. Every morning I get up early. So when I was 16, I was taking trips up the East Coast of the United States. I was living in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale. And any of you who are into surfing know that in the summer in South Florida, the surf is crap. It's just like wind chop. And it's just, anyway, we would get out there and have fun anyway. But it was the idea, we're free. And my parents gave me a Gulf Oil credit card, and I went with my friend Robbie and Bill, and we went up the East Coast surfing. We were staying with another friend, Kyle, in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, which is the nation's summer capital. Right? A lot of politicians from Washington would go there. I didn't see anybody famous, and we were sleeping in Kyle's guest. His parents had a guest room above the garage. And one night, no psychoanalysis here with this, what I'm about to tell you, but because I'll tell you just what it meant for me, what it still means for me. I woke up in the middle of the night, not fully, just partially awake, you know, the hypnagogic type of state where you're kind of awake, but not fully awake. I got up, I was in one of the pull-out beds, sofa beds you pull out. That's where I was sleeping. There were 2 other day beds. I got up, I walked over to the windows, and these are those windows that would slide up, and it had the glass panes, you know, it had whatever, 9 glass panes, I think it had, 333. And I was standing against the window, I had my hands, I was just leaning against the window, and the word freedom just exploded in my mind, in my inner visioning, just this literally, like you have a neon sign saying freedom, and then it just explodes. And I, at that time, left hand, we got the thing here with, and I took my left hand, leaning it, and I pulled it back and just smashed it through that pane of glass. Freedom. Smashed it to the plane of glass, cut it quite badly. And I felt that it was cut, but I didn't really come to full consciousness. And I went back to sleep. I woke up some hours later in a pool of blood, right? And, you know, hand gripping, blood clotting. And, you know, I was all like, guys, wake up. Something happened. And I did later see there was a little triangular piece that was stuck in the frame of the pane, and my big piece of my skin. And I still have a scar right there, Mounted Jupiter. I wonder what that means. Anyway, that was freedom. That stuck in my mind. It was revived, not that, maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, with a group from Japan they were called trance metal. I'm into trance. That's what part of what I do in my therapy. I use therapeutic trance. Trance metal, and I didn't know, but I had a young Facebook friend who said, I just heard this song by this group from Japan, and it's really great. And I didn't even pay attention to the title or anything. I just said, this guy's he's like a computer genius from Minneapolis, St. Paul. I said, whatever this, he was like 19, genius. I love young people. I hit click on it and just listened to it. And I really loved it. And actually I listened to it like 4 or 5 times in a row. And then I realized, oh, the title of this song is Freedom. That's the title of the song. And then I realized what the name of the group was. And the name of the group was, wait for it, Bloodstained Child. Right. So these are all things that reality, our higher self, is telling us. These are the little trails, little pathways back to love and back to freedom, and freedom from the brain, right? Freedom from enslavement by the linear language brain, right? Language is awesome. One of the most amazing creations of humanity's ever done. But we get trapped in these things in a way. They can be our liberation as well, but freedom, the heart, spirituality, love. Okay, so that's my little intro rave. Help me out, Loren.
Thank you so much. We all drift away from the heart.
Yeah.
And, you know, in relationships that we've got, we are very vulnerable through the heart. And because of that, we find that if we're hurt in the heart, then we start to shield our hearts and put up walls around our hearts. I even had like a rubber ball material that I placed around my heart, just so that people would send me stuff and it would just bounce right off and go back to them. And this is a journey of returning to the heart.
Mm.
This is a journey of returning to love.
Yes.
So maybe you want to talk more about how we evolve love. So that's another topic. We're talking about the spiritual heart. So awakening the spiritual heart after it's been numbed by the programming and by culture, which is not our friend, and by the linear brain. We have stepped outside of it. What does one need to do to awaken the spiritual heart?
Okay, well, you touched upon it right from the very beginning of what you just started saying, which is, look, I'm rubber, you're glue, everything you say bounces off me and sticks to you. We to love, right? And to move into a loving intimacy relationship with others. And two of the greatest people in America that I know of, Gay and Kathleen Hendricks, their relationship work is just beautiful, and they're masters of this stuff, but you kind of have to, there it is, there's my heart. So we get wounded, and I try to always orient not only myself, but anyone that I have any impact with or responsibility toward, not for, but toward. These are our sacred wounds. I don't believe we come to this planet for a life of R&R. And we get wounded almost, it's very difficult not to be wounded by the time you're 7, right? Developmentally, there's that book by Jean Liedloff called The Continuum Concept. And this is she was a researcher and a writer, and she went down to South America and studied. She kind of hung out with, but then she made a study of it for about 3 years, like intensely, and then wrote the book, The Continuum Concept. She's not the only one that's written about these things, but she wrote about it in a very poignant and accessible way. And she basically saw these tribal people in the Amazon, northern Amazon, that they held their children for 2 years. Those children were not away from them. They weren't like, plunk the baby down, as per Dr. Benjamin Spock. That's how this guy was raised as a baby. The mother said, he told mothers, don't let your baby control you. You have to show that baby who's in charge here. And when you put the baby down and it's nap time, and let that baby cry it out, and then they'll learn something. It was sort of like that. Anyway, she saw how these tribal people were. So they didn't get this mega wounding, smashing, where their heart gets hurt. I mean, look, we all know there are terrible things that also go on because nobody's perfect. We strive for excellence, but often we fall short of excellence. And sometimes because of our wounding, our children get really hurt really badly in ways that we might not even be aware of. Just not hugging a child. Hugging is what means something. The physical touch is what means something. And sometimes that physical touch goes way, way, way distorted and perverted, and people get wounded. And so when the heart has been wounded, I've spoken in we have we got down here in the belly, we got the solar plexus, and we got the heart up here. And we stuff our pain in these places. And if the heart has been wounded, it's very difficult to really be vulnerable and to receive love, right? And receiving love is just as important as giving love. Otherwise, there can be no real reciprocation if we're not in a receptive capacity or mood or dimension. So yes, what you're saying there, that there's a difficulty that we encounter where I might be physically attracted. Some of the Pathworks lectures by the guide talk about this, like the erotic principle. Oh, I'm really attracted to that person, sexually, and oh, they're really attracted to me, and there's that kind of sexual chemistry or heat or whatever. But that doesn't last forever. That's so-called honeymoon period, and then it kind of wears off unless there's the excavation into the hearts and letting go of the pain and the moving closer and deeper into true intimacy, where there are no withholds, where people are open to one another and the hearts are open. But until that time, that we need to do that inner work. And I mentioned that on our synchronicity talks about cleaning up, growing up, waking up, showing up, stepping up. And that cleaning up and growing up, part of that is with our hearts, helping our hearts to free up from the emotional pain that is almost invariably there. Because as Terence McKenna told us, culture is not your friend. Our culture is not really set up for us to be heart-centered and love-centered, right? Sometimes families are very aware parents who they know these things, and you say, "Wow, man, they got." Even if they have great parents, the wounding almost invariably takes place somehow, where we get our sacred wounds to grow through the pain, to grow through the limitations. Really, that's maybe a better way. Growing through the limitations of this human condition. So, as you were mentioning, Loren, the heart gets shut down really in certain ways, and we need to have a process of cleaning up and growing up, and letting go of that pain, letting go of the dropping that shielding. I liked your did you say rubber shield? What did you call it? What did you
Yes,
call
it was like a rubber ball.
Rubber ball. And we all
Yes.
have that experience of that. Yeah. And it's just like boing, boing, boing. Yeah. And where people repeatedly, I had a client a couple of days ago, really lovely, woman, 47 years old, had four significant relationships in her life. And boom, she's given him the flick 3 or 4 years. This is getting serious, man. There's the vulnerability. There's a requirement now. He wants to be more vulnerable. I was like, huh? The guy does? But yeah, that was her experience. And it went right back. 2 years old, inappropriate touching, sexual abuse started at a very young age. So getting close means getting wounded. And fear of vulnerability. And for those of get your pencils and pens out. If you haven't seen Brene Brown's brilliant talk, Power of Vulnerability, watch that. She's got some great books out. Got a new one out. It's something about the heart. I haven't gotten it, but she's a beautiful voice and presence in our present reality. Brene, B-R-E-N-E, Brene Brown, Power of Vulnerability. And she touches on these things also in her own very special and humorous. She has excellent timing. She said, so it's a pleasure to hear her. I've heard that talk because I presented it in many workshops and lectures. Probably heard it about 50 times. And yeah, but that's just matter of the heart, Brene Brown, and power of vulnerability. Because vulnerability is one of our bigger challenges if we've been wounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's almost like when we're talking about love, it goes into so many realms. We have the romantic love, which seems to, as you were saying, it seems to hit a roadblock. You said it'll fade if it's not really authentic.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about evolving love. And then this also brings up self-love, because if we have been wounded through the heart by being vulnerable, then chances are we're going to judge ourselves, we're going to blame ourselves, and that's not self-love. So if we are here to evolve love, how would you describe we take let's start with romantic love, and you want that to evolve into the greater love. What does that mean to you? evolve? Because it seems like, wow, why would you even bother if you had the romantic love and now you're trying to evolve it? What are we evolving it to? What's the ultimate goal with unconditional love and evolving love?
Yeah, everything you just said, there's about like 20 hours of response, because that's such all
It's deep.
beautiful. Yeah, and yeah, and you, all these things. I mean, hey, kindred spirits here. I really appreciate just how you said what you said, and well, you know, love between two human beings, there it unfolds and becomes nourished and enriched as we open our hearts further. And you know, so it kind of drifts, what you might say, oh well, that's kind of, it's physical love, it's become emotional love, and then it kind of moves into finer and finer frequencies, higher and higher vibratory category of being. And so it's important to do that cleaning up stuff. That's important. And to, you know, it's very hard to love ourselves if we've been wounded, which almost everyone is or becomes, because then the child almost always takes it upon him or herself to, it's my fault. It's my fault. I must be unlovable, or something's wrong with me. That's where this terrible, difficult feeling, state of shame comes in. And the shame blocks love, just blocks it. And I'm not letting it in. That's when I was open before and receptive to receive, and bang, I got smashed. So you mentioned so many things in what you just said, Loren. So I will ask you kind of bring me back on track, but because it's such a giant topic. So there is the practice of love, right? And there are a few models. There's two specific models that I really like. And one is through James Mahu, and he came up with this really, in the 90s, it was like, what is this thing, man? And it was the Wingmakers. So it's a website, you can go there, and it's a whole mythology. And when you listen to what he says about it, he's quite a private individual. He's not a public figure intentionally. But he has a model of living from the heart, which I really like. And the 6 heart virtues, right? So the idea, your life will be purposeful if you just do this. I want to know what my purpose is. What's my purpose? Your life will be profoundly, beautifully purposeful if one does this, lives a love-centered life from the heart by, so here's the practical bit, practicing the 6 heart virtues. So what are they? One is, the first one, appreciation / gratitude, appreciation. The behavior of appreciation. So not just the, I appreciate that, but there's and it kind of flows through and becomes like sort of established in 3D, you might say. Appreciation, compassion, right? Forgiveness. That's the F word I don't use as much because it's so loaded up. Like I had a client recently, I couldn't say the G word, God. It was too offensive because something that happened to her father was deeply, anyway. Appreciation, compassion, forgiveness, humility, understanding, and valor. Those 6 behaviors. Now, there's a lot of details about that.
What was the last one? Did you say valor?
Valor. Valor is holy anger, right? Valor. You're walking through a parking lot and you see someone throttling their child in the back seat of the car for whatever reason, doesn't matter. And even though it's vulnerable, risky to go there, the right thing to do is become present and tell that person, stop beating that child, right? Now they might tell you where to go if you do that, but the fact is the child needs protection. Beating children is not appropriate in any, I don't think, in any situation. And yeah, so valor is helping to protect those where it's a boundary. I'm going to help establish that boundary. Anger is there to establish boundaries or to maintain boundaries, to protect. And sometimes the innocent don't have the boundary, enough boundary. And so that's where you come forward. And so appreciation, compassion, forgiveness, humility, understanding, and valor. And, you know, that humility, a way of understanding humility is that to see that things don't have to be the way they've always been. That's one way of thinking about humility. And to understanding, almost if one can reach a deep level of understanding on just about anything, or be open to understanding what could be going on, release comes with understanding. You know, that, what is it, the Four Agreements book, and the idea of don't take things personally. Well, we won't take things personally if we establish and practice understanding. And like the spectrum of white light going through a prism, and it suddenly have a rainbow. The love is it's like that white light, and it's everything's underneath it. It's underneath everything. But these sort of six are like six colors. So that's one way. And then that's one way I have of thinking about evolving love. It's just, you can be doing anything. It doesn't matter really what you do in your life as a job, career, what you do to earn a living. It's great if it can align with unfolding love, evolving love, but it may not. It may just be, I'm a janitor in that building over there, or I'm an attorney, or or anything. I raise children. I'm a mother, and I'm taking care of my kids, trying not to wound them, but to really love them thoroughly. And it's difficult to give love if our hearts close down, right? So how can you really be loving? Back to some of the things you said just a moment ago. So as you love, and as you clean up, and as you grow up parts and integrate those parts, you know, eventually you encounter the magical child as you do that. That's not necessarily something that gets integrated. That's just a part of our deep core reality, that magical childlike energy of spontaneity, of deep and abiding curiosity, and some of the and the openness to love, and the openness to fun, right? To me, that's one of my life purposes, is to have fun. At first I heard that from Lazarus, the loving present energy being, who he, she, it, they are. And have fun. But as I thought about it, I've dwelt upon that for probably about 30 years. I see that, yeah. But not just any old fun that I consciously create. So fun doesn't mean it's just silly fun. It can be deep, profound, whatever. Not any judgment on any kind of fun. So as we do the work in that center, that fourth energy center, fourth chakra, of freeing the heart, freeing the heart of the encumbrances of pain, of the wounding that we incurred through whatever. If your parents are great, someone else is going to get you. I don't mean to be negative, but we're not here. This is from my point of view, and this is from a lot of deep trance work where you kind of are communicating with very deep parts of the personality And you get this thing where I'm not here to just be chilled out and have this relaxation and recreational experience as a human. I'm here to grow, man. I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn through this and through the compression and the weight and the constriction of, this physiological reality of the human body, which is a gift. Yeah. So
Yeah. Listening to you speak, it's as if okay, so we can separate it into romantic love,
mm-hmm.
and so for people who've been through it and they've had breakups or divorce, it just ends there. I've even had friends who say, why can't I love my ex-husband the way I love my kids, in that unconditional love?
Mm-hmm.
And so it means we have to transcend that romantic love.
Yeah.
We could probably, what do you want to call it, lust or something, because it seems like it would be, that is where the wounding comes from.
Can be. I refer to it, lust is a fine enough word. I think of it as erotic principle. And that,
because that takes over the whole body then, doesn't it?
It can, but it's not, there's nothing wrong with it. But there's more.
There's more. So how do you get to the what's more? So, if we're evolving love, and so you've got, let's say, for example, okay, you could say people who have broken up, maybe a marriage has broken up, and you want them to still get to that adult level of love. How do you love another person unconditionally who's hurt us so deeply? Or even in current relationships now that people may have, how do we expand it more into that unconditionalness?
This is just a way of thinking about it, that relationships are not to be happy. Like,
they're not to be happy.
They're not to be happy. They're not. The relationships
drama. Oh, okay.
Relationships are to grow, right? And from my experience, which is limited, but from everything I've seen, and I've seen thousands and thousands of clients, and I've heard it over and over again. I've had my own, because I'm married now, second time. My first relationship, and I love this person, and when we broke up, people go, I can't believe it, because we demonstrated a lot of love, not to make a show of it, but we were loving. We grew apart, and it has to do with just an inability, I will accept for my own side, an inability to go deeper, to face that pain, so the relationships are the catalyst to growth. I think if we say, you know what, I'm really serious about growing in this particular life I'm in right now as whoever, Richard, Loren, whoever, I'm really serious about growing, and I'm not gonna do this relationship. I just want to have fun, and like, we just can't go out and have a good time or whatever it is. I'm here to grow, and my partner is my mirror, right? And my loving mirror, right? As deep as the love can go at this stage, but whatever I see in them that I don't like, that's about me. I mean, that's true for all relationships, really, but the intimate, loving relationship with a partner, where that erotic principle has been running, right? That's like, the eroticism is like the lubricant, the gears and whatever, a machine, it needs lubrication. So it's not absolutely essential, but it can definitely help if the sexual dimension is active. And there are those who think that everything about the relationship can be understood through how the sexual side is running or not, or running rough. So the relationship is the vehicle, the catalyst, the supreme learning circumstance for spiritual evolution. That's my view. Better than a monastery. And I did I did the monastic thing. I was a monk for at least 8 years back in the 70s, and it was great. But my deep self sent me a dream one night, and the dream was to go and save that young woman. She was young too. Go and save that young woman. She is in a terrible, terrible situation. And this was in an ashram in Uttar Pradesh. And said, and the only way you probably are going to be able to do it is to marry her because of the Vedic circumstances. And so I literally, this is not my, because I talked a lot of people out of getting married, right? I was a celibate monk, and I said, man, if you get married, this is what it means, right? Because it means working. It's not, you're not going to be living this life in the ashram where just everything's all spiritual, and that's your focus. You're just intense focus, 24/7 spiritual stuff with a particular tradition. And but I had the dream, and I wrote a note, small, not even a big note. It was this little small note. I quoted the Mahabharata, which is one of the great, it's the biggest epic in the world, 300,000 verses. There's this gigantic story, Mahabharata, the great Bharata, the great India. That's the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Song of God. That is a famous Hindu scripture, and that's in the Mahabharata, but it's very small compared to the. Anyway, I quoted the Mahabharata, and the quote was, like a shining planet cast down from the sky, so sometimes reason is overthrown, and thus a man or an individual bows to his fate, right? And I felt the way this dream came through, it just felt so powerful and so strong. And I felt this is fated, almost like my future self, where I was in the relationship, is kind of saying, hey, you got to do this. This is very important. You have 5 people, 5 souls that want to incarnate through this relationship, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of very specialized growing that needs to occur. Write this note. So I said, I'm asking you right now if you will marry me. And in that, anyway, there was a little PS, and it said, PS, what's your name, right? I didn't even know what her name was. But 6 months later, we were married in Vedic style wedding with a fire sacrifice and the whole shebang. And that was a very intense and powerful and very important relationship for me. We're together for 25 years, 26 years, right? We're still amicable, we kind of grew also in different directions. She's now hugely into dance. She's a dance teacher, which she always wanted to be. It was like a soul calling. I do this stuff. But yeah, so relationships are vehicles of growth. They're the supreme catalyst for bringing up your stuff. If you got pain, if you have issues, issues. If you have pain or issues or anything, it's going to come right up in there. And then our attitude, and this is back to the 6 virtues, appreciation, gratitude. Gratitude in itself, appreciation, gratitude are a higher frequency. There's a higher frequency behavior to be grateful. And thank you. Kind of sending that into the heart, entering into whatever, it's like, who are we? Who am I? Who are, who? Well, right, for most of us, as we're in the beginning stages of kind of getting this, we are our kind of persona selves, which is not really our real self at all, really. It's just a, persona in the Greek drama, back 400 BC. They would do the amazing, mostly tragedies, but they had these masks, and then the mask was there, smiling, sad, whatever, all different. And they were just switching masks, not like our character actors these days. So the persona self, which is like, it's like a creation really. And how can we evolve our persona self, and how can we make that more real and then integrate that with the higher self? Notice I'm pointing to the heart. So yeah, relationships, if you kind of think of them in that way, I need to be in a relationship. Why, right? It's not just sexual. I need to be in a relationship because I need to reciprocate love. It's a deep thing. It's like a drive in us. But if I do that and I'm going to say, okay, I'm committed to this relationship and we're going to reciprocate love, well, then you're going to have to face some pretty important things, about what's going on, what's really happening within you. So the relationship, I go into this relationship as a wonderful, powerful vehicle to my spiritual evolution. That's my humble suggestion to those of you. And if you've had the repetition thing, where I don't know, man, I've been in like six relationships. They lasted about 2 years each, and I found out every one of them, him or her, whatever, was abusive. They became really abusive. Right? Oh, so what's the common theme here? Abuse, yeah. And what's the common denominator? It's you. What is it about you? Right? What is it? Is there an openness? When were you abused prior to even the idea of getting into a loving relationship as an adult? You know, kind of goes back almost invariably goes back to childhood wounds, sacred wounds. They're not bad. They are. What is it, Rumi? The crack in our psyche is where the light comes in, right? So to not judge these things as bad, just like, wow, my life process, you know? You think of the dramatic, the way of drama and the unfoldment of a story, the 3 acts, you know, and there's the hero or heroine encounters difficulties. And the difficulties are part of the amazingness of the story that's unfolding, you know. And we've touched upon that. Joseph Campbell, the academic mythologist, scholar. Separation, initiation, and return. The separation, that's the part we encounter where there's the wounding. I get separated from that magic. I was talking earlier, you know, every Christmas was a little bit less magical, and how I have these, just a couple of little trace images in my memories from lying in my bed when I'm like about 3 years old. And this place I used to go, it was some other dimension. I would go to some other dimension. And I just loved it there, but it gradually faded. And I can remember kind of that time where I had the recognition. Oh man, you know, kind of, it was a sort of a sad moment. I'm losing it. I'm losing all of this amazing stuff that I brought in, or what I was connected to before. I don't know what that was, but I'm losing it. So don't make your wounding bad. Just make it your wounding. It's like, own it. It's like, at some level, I orchestrated this, and I'm doing it to grow.
Yeah, I think that's the main takeaway here, because this conversation would actually make some people hesitate and shy away from love and relationships.
That's right.
But the takeaway is lean into it to see
Beautiful.
how we can be conscious of our love, conscious of our wounding, letting the other person in that relationship be a mirror to us.
Yeah.
As you said, really a lot of great esoteric things that you presented here. So, wow, that is how we evolve love in every relationship. So folks should be excited for relationships. And this could be a relationship for a neighbor. It's more than just someone that's intimate. It's all relationships.
All relationships.
We've heard great spiritual teachers say ascension occurs in the relationships because we are here evolving love.
Yeah.
So we've got a few more minutes as we wrap up our show. And my question then is, when we're talking about evolving love, is it possible to evolve love beyond the intimacy? Yes, in all ways.
Absolutely.
Evolve, even in intimate relationships evolve in love to that unconditionality of love.
Yep. Beautiful. And I like what you said, that let's lean into the discomfort.
Most of us would resist, like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, right.
because it hurts,
But,
it's painful.
yeah, but if you think about just about any learning, you know, it kind of has a pain about it, you know, like what is it?
Yes, it has a pain about it.
You know, like learning to drive a car, learn anything. It's awkward. It's like, what do I do here? What, I push the clutch and do this at the same time with that stick shift thing, and what, you know, it's challenging. It has its difficulties. It has its awkwardness, and it's like discomfort. And that lean into it. That's a really I think Gay and Kathleen Hendricks use that expression in some of their relationship stuff, and I've heard it in a variety of places, and I think that's really a valuable look. As an, you know, I heard from guys who did the training. I've seen this on documentaries or whatever. But they did military training when they were going into the Second World War, and they've got those guns with a bayonet on them, right, which is like a knife spear, you know, stuck onto the end of the gun. And they were being taught about using the bayonet. I mean, the whole thing is horrible till you think about it, but the point is that they were told by their drill sergeants, however, you got to put your force into that, because the human body, yes, you know, it's like flesh, and it's vulnerable. It can cut this thing, man, and it's like starts bleeding, but it's also tough. It's also tough. And so they made the point, when you have to bayonet a man, the enemy, you gotta stick it on there really hard, you know, and it's gonna get stuck, and you gotta, you know. So, but the whole point I'm making, why I'm bringing up that pretty, how to say, graphic example, is that we are tough. Really, we're tougher than we probably give ourselves credit for. It's, you know, mammals, we're tough. We don't have an exoskeleton, we have the endoskeleton, right? So the bones are on the inside. And so when we have a hard shell, we might, as you mentioned earlier, Loren, we might make a shell, we might make a rubber shell or whatever, protection. But we're tough. We can lean into that. And that some of us have been enduring, carrying pain for decades. That's how tough we are. I can handle that. But eventually our soul, our heart, and everything is going to say, you got to look at this thing. You got to look at it. And if we don't look, turn up the volume. Can you hear it now?
Turn up the volume.
Can you hear it now? Can you hear it now? You just don't want it to be all the way up, because that kind of hearing is sometimes where it's too little too late. And that's sometimes like a really serious disease situation, where it's the body keeps the score. Yeah. So, yes. So, yeah, love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, how do I love myself? I don't like myself. I'm no good. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, beautiful enough, rich enough, whatever, all that. That's that shame. John Bradshaw made that so clear in the late 80s, early 90s. Healing the shame that binds you. Right, that was one of his books. And yeah. So yeah, this is not just about romantic love, it's opening the heart. I like the expression to lead from the heart. Courage, cor is heart, courage, you know, valor, that's the heart. If you learn to, now when we do this workshop that's coming up whenever, I don't know if we've decided specifically on dates, but we're going to get into processes that And they're not difficult. It's not difficult. And as I think I mentioned on our synchronicity thing, the journey from the head to the heart, unlike what a lot of people say, which it has a kind of a cliche quality, the journey from the head to the heart. Longest journey I ever took was from the head to the heart. And we know what they mean. But really, the fact is, it's quite simple. And it's not a long journey at all. It's as simple as just literally just gently tapping on our sternum, or just kind of holding our hand over our heart. In fact, you can just try that. Just have your hand away, and then just with the intention of connecting with your heart, whatever that might mean to you, just place your hand on your heart area and smile. Send the smile in on the breath. And it's amazing how state shift can instantly shift state. Heart connection. There's so much about the heart. There's so much to say about it, and so many things to do to facilitate growing our personalities / personas, relationship to the heart. And then living through that and living with that from a place of ongoing understanding. If you understand what your reality is, the challenges of being human, and then, well, that human being, they've gotten the same, man. They can be a jerk, they can be just like their behavior, right? Hate the sin, not the sinner. But you might say, I don't really like the behavior of that person. I'm actually going to pull back. But the fact is that they are just encountering their humanity, and life is always doing the best it can, right? And that's a really beautiful underlying kind of belief or framework to operate from. Lean into the discomfort, and to know that for all of us, life is doing the best it can. You, me, we are all life. Are you living? Are you alive? Your life, right? And so how is it doing the best it can? Based upon the circumstances that are available to it. And that includes conditioning, background, wounding, emotional experiences, mental experiences, and the blade of grass stuck in the seed blew into a little crack in the sidewalk, rained, germinated, started growing, doing the best it can, but it's not in very good circumstances to really exhibit its full, could be a fruit tree, but even if it could break through that concrete a little bit more, push it apart a little bit, you're not going to have a big harvest of apples or whatever. It's going to it's just struggling. But we're going to look at that stupid plant. It's a dumb thing, man. Putting it down. We are all just doing the best we can. I'm not saying the best that could be done, and we're certainly not condoning any abusive behavior. Absolutely not. But in terms of why, there's a beautiful process. Actually, just got it right here. I'm looking through it. This is a great book. Connie Ray, Andreas, and her sister Tamara, back in 1994. Do it again. Core transformation, beautiful process, reaching the wellspring within. And the essence of what comes out is that every behavior has a positive intention under it. Every behavior. Someone's, shooting heroin. That's destructive. That's destructive. Or methamphetamine. Terrible, destructive. But underneath it, you find that there's an actual positive intention, and you get right down, keep going down deeper, deeper through the intentionality chain, and you get to these 5 core states, which are the essence of the nature of our deep self. Love. Peace, the peace that is beyond comprehension or conventional understanding. Oneness. Pure beingness. And then what they have described with a word that's not a real word, okayness. But people have different names when they encounter these states, but it's all under behaviors. That's a big destructive behavior if I've ever saw one. But the intention is good to do the behavior. The behavior is just like it's a bad strategy. That's all. Go down, down, down through the intentionality change. Boom! Suddenly, they're in these states, the energy in the room shifts. And yeah. So lean into the discomfort. That's brilliant, Loren. And know that I embrace my thrust and my inclination to grow, to become more, to become real.
It is becoming real. We've said at times on this program, love is all there is. Just love, just be love in the face of everything. And I've often said that maybe it's my ego mind that says this, that love feels like a cop-out. Like it's just a cop-out to feel in love or to feel love for everything. But our conversation today illustrates the I don't want to say challenge of love, but what is it? I have to be careful with my words here, but it illustrates that it's not a cop-out because we're going so deep. We are here on a mission of love. And that means having to move through some situations where we have to be adults, and it requires a little bit of pain.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we've all had the pain. We've all been through the pain. So I am very excited for everyone who's watching and listening to go and put this into the world in their relationships and evolve love the way that we came in to this incarnation saying, yes, we can do it. We can
I'm on a mission of love. When you said that, I got total body hair prickling, just total body shivers. Like, that's it. That's what
I'm on a mission of love.
I'm on a mission of love. And if that was the primary driver of everyone's life, it definitely heaven on earth. I mean, can you imagine? I'm just here, and if something's not working and it's the love, I'm just going to look into that. I'm not going to blame you, blame this or that. I'm just going to own it, look into it.
Own it. Look into our own love hurts.
Yeah. And then heal that. Sometimes it's just a matter of letting go of the pain, knowing I survived. I can let that pain go. I can understand I can understand if someone has hurt me. I can understand they just have their own pain, because we are emerging from the emotional dark ages, truly coming out of, it's still there. I mean, goodness gracious, I saw this documentary the other day about the slums of Nairobi, Kenya, and these poor people and these young children, homeless children, and they're all sniffing glue and jet fuel fumes, where they get little stashes of this stuff. And astronaut Ron Garan, these pictures overview. Ross, he says, it's so beautiful up there, but when you look down on it, this immense beauty that's almost incomprehensible. It's just overwhelming. Can't put it into words, ineffable. But you look down there and oh gosh, there's so many challenges, so much difficulty, so many humans are suffering, and all the challenges that we face. But the power of love, Huey Lewis and the News, remember that song? Must be the power of love. And I'm on a mission of love, to create love, to expand love, to show love, to be loving, to give it and to receive it.
Yes. And to give it to ourselves like no one else can.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a beautiful conversation. We invite all of those watching and listening to check out the special offer. The link is in our Zoom audience chat box. And also the link is on this webpage so that you can go check it out. You've got your Awakening the Spiritual Heart webinar coming up with you. The date will be listed there. And also the Mystical Synchronicity webinar. That was really deep and magical. The way that we saw synchronicity through your eyes made us look in our own lives at the true magic, the threads that we follow on the path of love and the journey as humans.
Mm.
And another beautiful thing that you've got is a personal session and some ebooks that go with that.
Yeah.
Would you like to add anything about that special offer?
Well, I noticed so far we haven't put it up, and I think it's because I haven't really been clear about it, but I am going to have a little ebook, kind of like instruction manual that will go with the Awakening the Spiritual Heart workshop. So that will also be there. And then the bigger combined thing, there's the other ebook too, which is Heart Dreaming, Living Mythically from the Heart, which was, it's short, but man, I have my whole heart and soul went into that. It's quite poetic, but
Yes, your lifetime. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but that was a hugely significant, and that synchronicity, that's the one that really said, all right, Richard, this lifetime has got a huge thing about the heart in this lifetime, and we're moving into this new millennium on the very day of that winter solstice. Like Christmas was a solstice type of celebration. That period in December, the darkest day of the year, and now the light returns. So we're now in a new millennium that we have come into. Of course, this was down in here in Australia in June of 1999, and on that day, yeah. So, but the point is, time to really focus in on the heart in greater intensity, and that's never boring. I'll tell you, it's never boring. You start becoming in love with your heart, and that love is reciprocal, and it takes you deeper and deeper. The intersection of infinity, right in there, for all of us, and we're connected up in ways that go way beyond our capacity to imagine. I dropped that word in Sanskrit word called Vaikuntha. There are dimensions of reality where love is everything. And it is a type of union and separation that occurs, which it's like a cauldron of love creating. That's like, you put too much baking soda or whatever, and suddenly the whole thing starts like bubbling over. It just like expands out of your capacity to control it. Is just like it overwhelms. Union and separation. And when the separation is there, with it, absence makes the heart grow fonder. When the separation is a part of an ongoing process, as like, I'm not thirsty, but yeah, I'll have a sip of water just because you're offering and I'm trying to receive your gift. But I'm dying of thirst, and there's a different characteristic to that reception of water, and the necessity really makes it. So when there's separation, the necessity intensifies, and the roots go down deep. The roots of love go deep into the heart, where there's the necessity. And so those of us who are in loving relationships, and yet we are separated from that special person or pet, a woman recently, and she's separated from her pet as she's doing this workshop with me, and she could feel that separation. Yeah. So there will be an ebook sort of / instruction manual for the processes that we're going to be. Here they say process. Look at the processes. In America, we say process, damn it. And
Process, yes.
that's right. We're going to do some process work, and that will be there, and it will be fun and rewarding. And if you put this stuff into practice, you will not be sorry.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Again, the Mystical Synchronicity webinar was very magical with you. You left us in a very high vibration. So we're looking forward to this as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Richard Whitehurst, for sharing with us today. We are in love, and we're going deep into our hearts. Thank you. And
thank you, Loren Gailey, for letting me do this. I was talking about having fun, and I have so much fun doing this stuff, and it's kind of like an opportunity to let it out more. Like we kind of like a pressure has built up, and I just want to give. I want to just give and give, but I'm open to receiving too. I'm totally open to that, and that's so. It's I really receive this with gratitude that I'm able to do this with you, and you really keep it on a high level. You have this quick thing where you summarize, and then you do them, and then and next thing you know, we're vibrating at a higher level, and we're going into it further, deeper, higher. It's fabulous. So thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching as well. We're all vibrating at a higher level, and we are thankful for your light. Thank you. Again, you can learn more about the upcoming workshop and everything in Richard's special offer on the link on this webpage. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Loren. See ya.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. Access all quantum conversations, special offers from our guests, and online healing retreats by visiting acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe, as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music, available at acoustichealth.com. Namaste.